So good morning, and thank you all for coming on this nice, not as cold as last year morning.
Exactly, it's like beach weather today
Yes,
compared to last year.
So my name is Jana Torchuk. I'm a staff attorney at Lutheran Social Services, and we are proud to help get information about human trafficking to the city of Worcester and the state of Massachusetts as part of our Human Trafficking Legal Assistance Center. So I'm going to say a few words today, and I'm going to pass over the mic to our mayor and other representatives, and if anyone here standing out in front of us want to say a few words about how human trafficking has impacted them or someone that they know, the floor will be yours. Okay? So, looking out in the crowd, I want to thank you all for all of your support, and I can see partners, community partners, and legislators that have really gone the distance to bringing the issue of human trafficking into the awareness, the public awareness. And we have a lot to be grateful for this year. Last year when we did this event, we were really talking about awareness, trying to get people to understand that human trafficking exists in Worcester, in the city of Worcester, and we're still trying to get the word out. And we are so grateful that through the efforts of community members like yourselves and legislators, we now have a law in the state of Massachusetts. It's now a crime to human traffic people. So if you can, please join me in a great applause for our representatives that's here that have helped pass this law. And I'm going to say a little bit about human trafficking with a quote from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Modern slavery, be it bonded labor, involuntary servitude, or sexual slavery, is a crime, and it cannot be tolerated in any culture, community, or country. It is an affront to our values and our commitment to human rights. And I just want to take a moment to give silence and respect and to honor the people that have suffered and those that have survived and those that will be impacted by this new legislation. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of human trafficking legislation in not only the state, but in the country. So, the United States Trafficking Victims Protection Act, otherwise known as TVPA, was passed in 2000. So, 11 years ago, our country first got a solid law against human trafficking. And it guaranteed protection of trafficked persons through prevention and prosecution. The TVPA emboldens states to pursue and enact legislation to combat trafficking at the state level. So 11 years later, in the state of Massachusetts, until two months ago in the state of Massachusetts, we knew crimes were being committed and trafficking in persons was occurring in the state of Massachusetts. And although some of these crimes were pursued under TVPA and other federal statutes, the lack of a state law, a state crime against human trafficking, meant that prosecution methods were affected along with our survivor response. On November 21st, 2011, Governor Patrick Duvall signed House 3808, an act relative to the commercial exploitation of people. This act creates state definitions for sexual servitude and forced services. It increases penalties for human trafficking offenses, and it fights demand. It also provides protections and potential resources for survivors. We have come together today with a common interest and a common purpose to work to end exploitation of men, women, and children here in Worcester and in the state of Massachusetts. And I want to talk about what we can do. Give me 1 second. The following are some practices that governments and NGOs and dedicated committed individuals like you that can do in our communities. And these are strategies to address human trafficking and assist survivors. So we can implement victim identification training for healthcare workers, attorneys, social workers, teachers, workplace inspectors, child welfare advocates, religious leaders, and other professionals likely to encounter trafficking. We can train government personnel, particularly those in labor, health, immigration, and law enforcement, to identify and refer victims. We can adopt programs to screen vulnerable immigrant populations, including asylum seekers, for indicators of trafficking. And we can inform non-citizen and citizen workers of relevant workplace and other rights to facilitate the self-reporting of labor violations, exploitation, and trafficking. We can also then allow trafficked persons to take legal recourse against their trafficker and seek compensation for their loss. We can provide those victims with information about their rights and legal proceedings in a language that they understand. We can take appropriate and feasible measures to protect trafficked persons and their family members from intimidation and retaliation from traffickers. And furthermore, we can make the appropriate services available to victims, including medical care, emergency and transitional housing with long-term housing assistance, mental health counseling, food, clothing, educational and vocational training and placement, family location and reunification, translation and interpretation, advocacy in the criminal justice system, spiritual support, criminal, civil, and immigration legal assistance, safety planning, repatriation, and assistance in finding and assessing these many services. I invite you all to get involved and to stay in touch. And I'd like to next invite our mayor, from the city of Worcester, Mayor Joseph Petty.
Thank you, Jana. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here today. I want to thank Lutheran Social Services for putting this event on, along with Jana Torchek. It's an issue, human trafficking is one of those issues I think everyone knows it exists, but you don't really understand the impact or how to address it. And I think Jana did a great job bringing it to the forefront. Now it's about training, as you had mentioned, so people understand how they're going to address it in the future. It's one of those underlying issues that you know it's out there, but you don't really understand the serious impact of sexual exploitation or forced labor. And on behalf of the City Council, I have a proclamation. I see Sarai Rivera, City Councilor, along with Tony Economo, who's out there, along with State Rep O'Day, Mahoney, Senator Moore, and Vice Rodriguez Parker from Jim McGovern's office. I think I get everything. I'd just like to read the proclamation. And oh, Joe O'Brien, former Mayor Joe O'Brien. The United States passed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act in 2000 to address prevention, protection, and prosecution of human trafficking. And whereas on November 21st, 2011, Governor Deval Patrick signed Massachusetts anti-traffic legislation, an act relative to the commercial exploitation of people, clearly establishing sexual servitude and forced services as crimes punishable in the Commonwealth and increasing criminal penalties for those involved in labor and sex trafficking. And whereas trafficking victims are men and women, adults and children, individuals, families, or groups, or educated or illiterate, U.S. citizens, foreign nationals, documented or undocumented persons. And whereas, according to the 2011 U.S. State Department Trafficking in Persons Report, the United States is a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children subjected to forced labor, debt bondage, document servitude, and sex trafficking. Trafficking occurs for commercial sexual exploitation and for labor in various industries and sectors. And whereas Worcester's geographical position within New England and the United States possesses a high risk of trafficking, therefore a general lack of awareness of the issue in our region, and there are limited services for victims, which results in under-identification of victims. And whereas there is a myriad of challenges to identify victims, such as low public awareness of crime of human trafficking, widespread myths, misconceptions, and misunderstandings about the state and federal definition of human trafficking, and limited awareness about new state legislation. The majority of victims do not self-identify or proactively seek help. Human trafficking, as in essence, is a crime designed not to be detected, and there's a myriad of reasons why victims often cannot or will not leave a trafficking situation. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Joseph M. Petty, do hereby proclaim January 11, 2012 as Human Trafficking Awareness Day in the City of Worcester, and encourage all its residents to recognize and participate in this observance. Thank you. Thank you to Lutheran Services.
So I'd next like to invite our new councillor for the City of Worcester, Sarai Rivera.
I want to thank Lutheran for all the hard work that they do. And I want to just briefly mention to you the human of human trafficking. So I'd like to talk to you about a girl that I'm going to call Kathy, and how she was kidnapped at the age of 12 from a village in her country and was promised a different life, brought into this country to be enslaved for the sex trade. She was impregnated by the age of 13, lost her son, and lives about 2-mile radius of where we're standing today, thriving in our wonderful Worcester public school system and having a hope for a better life. I'd like to talk to you about a young man I'll call Victor. And he was kidnapped. He didn't want to succumb to a gang in his village because he wanted a better life. And when he declined to join a gang, they stabbed him and he was almost put to death. So his mother sacrificially went to try to cross him over to the border, only to be kidnapped by a coyote, which then he was held for ransom. And on the day that he was sentenced to be put to death by the coyotes because family had no money to pay, it was by the grace of God that he was saved by the FBI. I'd like to tell you about Donna, who, because she was sexually molested in her country and the fear of her being able to put charges against her perpetrator, was kidnapped and thrown into the border of this country to be repeatedly abused throughout the border. These are all 3 youth that I'm telling you today that live within the city of Worcester, who are doing well, who are thriving, and actually have a future and a hope. This is a reality. And so I stand here today for them and for countless others who often have had been voiceless. Thank you, Lutheran, for being the voice of the voiceless, and for all of you here today that care and matter for them. I love them dearly, and I stand for them today, and many others. Thank you.
I next want to invite Gladys Rodriguez-Parker from the office of our Congressman McGovern.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I'm here today standing in for Congressman Jim McGovern, who couldn't be here this morning, but wanted to make sure that he lent his voice and his support to the efforts that Lutheran Services does every single day, not only on this issue, but many other issues that impact some of the folks that Councilor Sarai Rivera just talked about. Every single day in our office, we deal with folks who are dealing with these types of issues. And I just wanted to do a shout out to the community, that if anyone in the community is dealing with these types of issues, that Congressman McGovern's office is open and available to folks to come in and talk to us so that we could figure out with our partners in the community the types of activities that we need to take to make sure that not only that we continue to shed light on this issue, but that we stop what's going on with this issue. And I thank you. I thank all of you, all of the partners, on behalf of Congressman Jim McGovern. He knows that every single day you go to bed, you wake up thinking about not only this particular issue, but many issues that impact this community. So thank you.
Gladys. I next want to invite our ally in the fight, Representative Michael Moore.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming here this morning. I know we're all cold out there this morning, but you know, so often in the United States, in Massachusetts, we think about our quality of life. We don't realize what some aspects of the community are actually going through. I know when I got in the legislature, when I started hearing the facts of human trafficking, I was astounded. It was amazing to think that we still had this going on in our country today. And in Massachusetts, we think of our state being on the forefront of so many issues. I find out that we are one of the last states to have enacted this type of legislation. So I'm very proud to be part of the legislature to address this issue and try to stop the pain and suffering that some people are coming here. We look as the United States as a place that people want to come to start a new life for their families to move forward with a better quality of life. So hopefully this will help those people coming here, and we can take them out of bondage and we can support them. So thank you all for being here this morning.
Is there anyone that is out there that would like to speak that has not told me prior? Anyone from the DA's office? No. Okay. I have one more thing I'd like to close with. And I thank you for tolerating the cold, this cold January morning. And we have more coffee, so please come up and get some more hot coffee. I wanna end with a quote from President Obama, and I'll wait until the ambulance passes.
Josephina.
But before I do so, I'm gonna call Josephina Lance up before us to say a few words on behalf of Lutheran Social Services. Josephina Lance.
Thank you, Jana. It's wonderful to see so many people dedicated and caring about this issue come by today, especially our legislators and representatives who stand for us when we think about new rules, new regulations, new laws, prosecution of perpetrator and assistance to survivors. We at Lutheran Social Services really try to do what we can for assistance. Of course, it's not quite enough, but we are hopeful that we will be able to do more in a future, in the near future. So I urge you all who have interest, call us, stop by, see what it is that we do, and get more hands-on experience and view of what we do. So thank you all for coming today. Special thanks to all the speakers, Mayor for his proclamation and willingness to support us. Thank you.
Okay, everyone jump up and down. Okay. So I'm going to close with a quote from our President Obama. He stated this in the last Human Trafficking Awareness Day. So, the victims of modern slavery have many faces. They are men and women, adults and children, yet all are denied basic human dignity and freedom. Victims can be abused in their own countries or find themselves far from home and vulnerable. Whether they are trapped in forced sexual or labor exploitation, human trafficking victims cannot walk away, but are held in service through force, threats, and fear. All too often, suffering from horrible physical and sexual abuse, it is hard for them to imagine that there might be a place of refuge. We must join together as a nation and global community to provide that safe haven by protecting victims and prosecuting traffickers. With improved victim identification, medical and social services, training for first responders, and increased public awareness, the men, women, and children who have suffered this scourge can overcome the bonds of modern slavery, receive protection and justice, and successfully reclaim their rightful independence. I thank you all for being part of this day. I hope you go out into your day and tell people about what you have learned today. We have plenty of information at this table up front, and we are ready 24/7 to receive your call if you have someone in need. Please call on us. We can do outreach trainings to your communities, your workplaces. And thank you and have a good day.
Hey, Mohan.